Picture this, it's 7:30 a.m. on a Tuesday morning in Manhattan. Sarah clutches her coffee as she descends into the subway, immediately hit by a wall of noise, screeching brakes, shouting vendors, the endless chatter of 1,000 conversations. Her phone buzzes incessantly with notifications, Instagram likes, work emails, news alerts, each one demanding her attention, her reaction, her validation. By the time she reaches her office in Midtown, she's already mentally exhausted and the day hasn't even begun. Meanwhile, 3,000 miles away in Los Angeles, Marcus sits in his car on the 405, scrolling through LinkedIn during yet another traffic jam. He watches colleagues posting about promotions, exotic vacations, and seemingly perfect lives. That familiar knot forms in his stomach, the one that whispers he's not successful enough, not happy enough, not enough, period. The pressure to keep up, to maintain his image, to meet everyone's expectations feels suffocating. In Chicago, Jennifer walks into her high-rise office building, her mind already racing through the day's meetings, deadlines, and the constant need to prove herself in a competitive corporate environment. The weight of others' opinions, the fear of judgment, the relentless pursuit of external approval, it all feels overwhelming. Does this sound familiar? Have you ever felt utterly consumed by the noise around you, the endless stream of opinions, expectations, and the relentless pressure of keeping up? You're not alone. What's fascinating is that ancient Stoic philosophers over 2,000 years ago faced the same human emotions, struggles, and questions about identity and purpose that we grapple with today in our modern American cities. Marcus Aurelius, the Roman emperor and Stoic philosopher, wrote in his personal journal, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this and you will find strength." These words, penned nearly 2 millennia ago, speak directly to Sarah on that crowded subway, to Marcus in his traffic jam, and to Jennifer in her corporate tower. The wisdom from centuries past holds profound relevance in our modern, fast-paced world. Whether you're navigating the social pressures of New York City, the image-obsessed culture of Los Angeles, or the competitive business environment of Chicago, Stoic philosophy offers timeless truths that can help us navigate the chaos of the 21st century with grace, resilience, and profound inner peace. Today, we're diving deep into 8 transformative Stoic principles specifically designed for solving problems with people, those challenging relationships, difficult conversations, and interpersonal conflicts that drain our energy and disturb our peace. Whether you're struggling with workplace stress, seeking meaning in your relationships, or simply curious about a philosophical approach to life that has stood the test of time, you're in the right place. Together, we'll explore how Stoicism isn't just a set of ancient ideas, but a practical guide to living more fully, authentically, and serenely in our modern urban environments. Each principle we'll discuss today has been tested not just by philosophers, but by millions of people facing real-world challenges just like yours. 1. Liberation from external validation. Sarah Martinez had always been the golden child. Growing up in Queens, she excelled in school, earned her MBA from Columbia, and landed her dream job at a prestigious Manhattan marketing firm. But now at 32, sitting in her corner office overlooking Central Park, she felt more trapped than triumphant. Every campaign she created, every client presentation she delivered, every strategic decision she made was filtered through one devastating question: what will they think? Her days were consumed by seeking approval from her demanding boss, her competitive colleagues, and her perfectionist clients. She'd rewrite emails 5 times, second-guessing every word. She'd stay late not because the work required it, but because she feared being seen as less committed than her peers. Her Instagram feed was carefully curated to project success and happiness, while inside she felt increasingly hollow and anxious. This is the modern prison of external validation, a cage we build for ourselves bar by bar with each desperate attempt to meet others' expectations. We surrender our peace of mind and happiness trying to fit into the molds others create for us, forgetting that these molds were never designed for our unique shape. Marcus Aurelius, who ruled the Roman Empire while facing constant criticism and political pressure, understood this struggle intimately. In his meditations, he wrote, "How much trouble he avoids who does not look to see what his neighbor says or does, but only to what he does himself." The emperor recognized that seeking external approval is not just futile, it's destructive to our inner peace and authentic self-expression. But why do we fall into this trap so easily? In our hyper-connected world, we're bombarded with others' opinions constantly. Social media platforms are designed to trigger our need for validation through likes, comments, and shares. Our professional environments often reward conformity over creativity. We've been conditioned since childhood to seek approval from parents, teachers, and peers, making it feel natural to continue this pattern into adulthood. Marcus Aurelius challenges us to question this innate desire to please others. He urges us to break free from what he calls the chains of external validation. In another passage, he reflects, "Remember that very little disturbs the wise man, for he is not disturbed by the loss of external things, knowing that they are not his own." This includes the approval of others. It was never truly ours to begin with. Consider this liberating thought: the only approval you truly need is your own. When Sarah finally understood this principle, everything changed. She began asking herself different questions. Does this align with my values? Am I proud of this work? Does this decision reflect who I want to be? The shift was profound. Instead of crafting presentations to impress others, she focused on creating genuine value. Instead of seeking her boss's constant approval, she trusted her expertise and presented her ideas with confidence. Think about it. When you lay your head on your pillow at night, it's your thoughts you're left with, not others. So why not make those thoughts about your true self, your values, and your actions that align with who you really are? Epictetus, who knew the pain of seeking approval as a slave before becoming a renowned philosopher, taught, "Wealth consists in not having great possessions, but in having few wants." This applies to emotional wealth as well. When we stop wanting others' approval, we become rich in self-acceptance and inner peace. The path to freedom begins with understanding and reaffirming your values. What do you stand for? What matters most to you? For Sarah, it was creativity, integrity, and making a meaningful impact through her work. When she aligned her actions with these beliefs, she experienced a profound sense of peace and authenticity that no amount of external approval could match. Here's a practical exercise. Write down your top 5 values. Then, for 1 week, before making any significant decision, ask yourself, does this choice honor my values? Notice how different your decisions become when you're guided by internal compass rather than external expectations. Embracing your uniqueness attracts the right kind of people into your life, those who appreciate you for who you genuinely are, not for who they want you to be. Sarah discovered that when she stopped trying to be what everyone else wanted, she began forming deeper, more authentic relationships with colleagues who shared her values and vision. It's about quality, not quantity. Having a few meaningful relationships based on mutual respect and understanding is infinitely more fulfilling than seeking the fleeting approval of the masses. As Seneca wisely noted, every new beginning comes from some other beginning's end. Your journey toward authentic living begins when you end your dependency on others' opinions. Remember that people's opinions are just that, opinions. They are subjective, variable, and often more reflective of the person expressing them than of you. Someone's criticism might say more about their insecurities, fears, or limited perspective than about your actual worth or capabilities. Marcus Aurelius reminds us, you have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this and you will find strength. The constant and true validation comes from within, from living a life aligned with your values and principles. When you anchor yourself in this truth, external storms of criticism or praise may come and go, but your inner peace remains unshakable. Sarah's transformation didn't happen overnight, but as she practiced this Stoic principle, she found herself sleeping better, feeling more confident in meetings, and creating work that truly reflected her talents and values. She had discovered what the Stoics knew centuries ago: freedom isn't the absence of constraints, it's the presence of self-determination. 2. The foundation of authentic living. Michael Chan stood at the floor-to-ceiling windows of his law firm's 40th floor office in downtown Chicago, watching the evening traffic crawl along Lakeshore Drive. At 35, he was a senior associate at one of the city's most prestigious corporate law firms, earning more money than he'd ever imagined possible. Yet tonight, he faced a decision that would test everything he believed about success, integrity, and who he wanted to be. His managing partner had just offered him a fast track to partnership. All he had to do was slightly manipulate some financial disclosure documents for their biggest client. Nothing illegal, just creative interpretation that would save the client millions and secure Michael's future. Everyone did it. It was just business. But as he stared at his reflection in the darkening window, Michael felt something deep inside him recoil. This moment perfectly illustrates what happens when we're forced to choose between external success and internal integrity. When we talk about being honest, it's easy to default to the simple idea of not lying to others, but Stoicism invites us to explore honesty on a much deeper, more transformative level. Epictetus, who understood the cost of compromising one's principles, taught, "No man is free who is not master of himself." True freedom comes from aligning our external actions and words with our internal values and beliefs. This alignment fosters a profound sense of integrity and wholeness that no amount of external success can provide. For Michael, this wasn't just about one decision, it was about the kind of person he wanted to be. Would he be someone who could look at himself in the mirror with respect, or someone who had to avoid his own reflection? The peace that comes from knowing your actions are not just surface-level performances, but true reflections of your inner self, is immeasurable. Epictetus really hammers this point home in his discourses. First say to yourself what you would be, and then do what you have to do. He suggests that honesty doesn't just make moral sense, it makes practical sense. Think about the mental gymnastics required to maintain a dishonest life. Deceit requires us to remember our lies, cover our tracks, and live in constant fear of being found out. It's mentally exhausting, creating a web of anxiety that grows more complex with each compromise. Consider the executive who inflates their resume. They must constantly worry about being discovered, carefully navigate conversations that might expose their deception, and live with the imposter syndrome that comes from knowing their position is built on false foundations. The cognitive load is enormous, stealing energy that could be directed toward genuine achievement and growth. Honesty, on the other hand, is simple and liberating. It frees us from the tangled web of deceit and allows us to live with ease and clarity. When Michael chose to decline the partnership track rather than compromise his integrity, he experienced something remarkable: relief. The weight of maintaining a false version of himself lifted, replaced by a sense of authentic power. Seneca understood this liberation intimately. He wrote, "Every new beginning comes from some other beginning's end." Sometimes being honest means ending comfortable lies to begin authentic living. It requires courage to face the truth about ourselves and our circumstances, but this courage is the foundation of genuine self-respect. But here's the real revelation: honesty affects not only our relationship with others, but also with ourselves. When we are honest with ourselves about our strengths, our flaws, our desires, and our fears, we pave the way for genuine growth and self-acceptance. It's like clearing out the clutter in our minds to make room for more peace, more understanding, and more authentic connections with the people around us. Michael's journey toward honesty began with brutal self-assessment. He had to admit that his drive for partnership wasn't about serving justice or helping clients. It was about status, money, and proving himself to his immigrant parents who had sacrificed everything for his education. This honest self-reflection was painful but necessary. As Marcus Aurelius wrote, confine yourself to the present. The present moment demanded honesty about his motivations and values. Embracing honesty is not always easy. It requires courage and vulnerability. It means sometimes admitting we were wrong, facing our mistakes, and dealing with the consequences of our actions. When Michael told his managing partner he couldn't participate in the scheme, he faced immediate consequences, passed over for partnership, excluded from high-profile cases, and subtle pressure to find another firm. But the reward, trust, respect, and a clear conscience proved immeasurably worth it. Within 6 months, Michael had joined a smaller firm that valued integrity over profit margins. His new colleagues respected his principled stance, and clients began seeking him out specifically because of his reputation for honesty. His career flourished in ways that felt authentic and sustainable. So how can we cultivate this virtue in our daily lives? It starts with small steps and builds into a way of being. Practice transparency in your interactions. Instead of saying, "I'm fine," when you're struggling, try, "I'm having a challenging day." Instead of agreeing with opinions you don't share to avoid conflict, respectfully express your perspective. Reflect on your day and acknowledge moments where you might not have been entirely honest with others or yourself. Ask yourself why you chose deception over truth. Was it fear? Convenience? The desire to avoid conflict? Understanding your patterns is the first step toward changing them. Create what Stoics call an evening review. Each night, examine your actions and words. Did they align with your values? Where did you compromise your integrity, and how can you improve tomorrow? This practice, recommended by both Seneca and Marcus Aurelius, builds self-awareness and strengthens your commitment to authentic living. Remember, honesty is a journey, not a destination. Every step toward truth is a step toward a more serene and meaningful life. As Epictetus reminds us, it's not what happens to you, but how you react to it that matters. Choose to react with honesty and watch how it transforms not just your relationships, but your entire experience of being alive. 3. Mastering emotional responses. Jennifer Rodriguez had been teaching high school English in East Los Angeles for 8 years, pouring her heart into helping students from challenging backgrounds discover the power of literature and critical thinking. But lately, her passion was being overshadowed by a growing sense of frustration and personal attack. During parent-teacher conferences, she faced accusations that her assignments were too hard and that she was setting kids up to fail. Her principal, under pressure from district administrators focused on test scores, questioned her methods and suggested she lower her standards to meet the students where they are. Each criticism felt like a personal assault on her character, her competence, and her dedication. Jennifer found herself lying awake at night, replaying conversations, crafting perfect responses she wished she'd given, and feeling the familiar sting of hurt and anger. The worst part was how these feelings followed her home, affecting her relationships with her husband and children, stealing her joy and peace of mind. We've all felt that sting, that immediate reaction when someone's words or actions seem to hit us right where it hurts most. It's one of the most universal human experiences, the tendency to interpret others' behavior as a direct reflection of our worth, competence, or character. But this automatic response, while natural, often causes us far more suffering than the original situation warranted. Seneca, with his profound understanding of human nature, offers us a different perspective. In his letters to Lucilius, he writes, "You will continue to suffer if you have an emotional reaction to everything that is said to you. True power is sitting back and observing things with logic. True power is restraint. If words control you, that means everyone else can control you. Breathe and allow things to pass." Seneca reminds us to look beyond the surface of others' actions and words. He suggests that when someone acts in a way that we find hurtful or offensive, it's often not really about us at all. People act based on their perceptions, their struggles, their history, and their current emotional state. It's like everyone is moving through the world wearing a unique pair of glasses that colors how they see everything around them, including us. Consider Jennifer's situation through this lens. The parents criticizing her weren't necessarily attacking her personally, they were responding from their own fears about their children's futures, their own struggles with education, and their desire to protect their kids from failure. The principal wasn't questioning Jennifer's worth as a teacher, he was responding to pressure from above, his own job security concerns, and the complex demands of educational bureaucracy. Marcus Aurelius understood this principle deeply. He wrote, "Whenever you want to cheer yourself, consider the good qualities of your companions, for instance, the energy of one, the modesty of another, the generosity of a third, and so forth. For nothing cheers the heart so much as the examples of the virtues, when they are exhibited in the morals of those who live with us and present themselves in abundance, as far as is possible. Wherefore we must keep them before us." This perspective shift requires us to develop what psychologists now call theory of mind, the ability to understand that others have thoughts, feelings, and motivations that are separate from our own. When we remember that everyone is fighting their own battles, carrying their own burdens, and viewing the world through their own unique lens of experience, we can respond with empathy rather than defensiveness. Think about a time when you might have snapped at someone or acted in a way that wasn't really you. Perhaps you were dealing with stress at work, worried about a family member's health, struggling with financial pressures, or simply having a really bad day. Your behavior in that moment wasn't truly about the person in front of you, it was about your internal state. Now, if we can recognize this pattern in ourselves, why not extend that same understanding to others? This perspective shift, which Seneca advocates, is about empathy, but it's also about self-preservation. When we stop taking things personally, we detach ourselves from the unnecessary pain that comes with believing everyone's actions are about us. It's like setting down a heavy burden we've been carrying around unnecessarily. Suddenly, we can breathe more freely, move with greater ease, and live with less emotional volatility. But how do we actually implement this wisdom, especially when our emotions are already flared up? The Stoics offer us practical techniques that work even in the heat of the moment. First, there's the power of the pause. When you feel that rush of hurt or anger, when that familiar voice in your head starts saying, "How dare they?" or "This is so unfair." Pause. Take a breath. Remind yourself of Seneca's words, "This might not be about me at all." Epictetus teaches us, it's not what happens to you, but how you react to it that matters. This simple act of pausing creates space between stimulus and response, preventing a reactive spiral and giving you the opportunity to choose a more reasoned, dignified response. Jennifer began practicing this technique during her most challenging interactions. When a parent accused her of being uncaring, instead of immediately defending herself, she paused and considered what might be driving their concern. Often, she discovered that behind the criticism was genuine worry about their child's future, frustration with their own inability to help with homework, or past negative experiences with education. Building resilience through this practice requires consistent effort. The more we remind ourselves that we don't have the full picture of what someone else is going through, the less likely we are to be wounded by their actions or words. We begin to see criticism not as personal attacks, but as information about the other person's state of mind, fears, or limitations. When we do get hurt, because it will happen, we're human after all, we can treat it as a practice ground for our Stoic principles. Ask yourself, what can I learn from this? How can this experience help me grow in wisdom and compassion? What would Marcus Aurelius or Seneca do in this situation? As Marcus Aurelius reminds us, the best revenge is not to be like your enemy. Instead of responding to negativity with more negativity, we can choose to respond with understanding, patience, and grace. This doesn't mean becoming a doormat or accepting truly inappropriate behavior. It means choosing our responses consciously rather than reactively. In embracing this Stoic approach, we not only protect our peace of mind, but also open ourselves up to more compassionate and meaningful interactions. We become less reactive, more understanding, and in a profound way, more connected to the shared humanity in everyone we meet. 4. The power of patient endurance. David Kim stared at his computer screen in his cramped Seattle office, watching the loading bar crawl toward completion for what felt like the 100th time that day. As a senior software engineer at a fast-growing tech startup, he was used to pressure, but today felt different. The company's biggest client had moved up their product launch deadline by 6 weeks, the development team was already stretched thin, and his project manager seemed to believe that shouting louder would somehow make the code compile faster. Around him, his colleagues were visibly fraying. Sarah from marketing was stress-eating her third energy bar while frantically updating social media campaigns. The junior developers looked like deer in headlights, paralyzed by the mounting pressure. The office atmosphere was thick with tension, impatience, and barely contained panic. Every delay, a slow server, a bug in the code, even the coffee machine taking too long, triggered visible frustration and harsh words. But David had been studying Stoic philosophy for the past year, and he was determined to put it into practice during this crisis. As he watched his colleagues spiral into impatience and anxiety, he remembered Marcus Aurelius' words about patience and began to see this chaotic situation as an opportunity rather than a burden. Marcus Aurelius, who ruled an empire while facing constant military campaigns, political intrigue, and personal tragedies, wrote extensively about patience in his meditations. He saw patience not just as passive waiting, but as an active engagement with the present moment, whatever it may hold. In one of his most profound reflections, he wrote, "Confine yourself to the present. The present moment is the only time over which we have dominion." To Marcus Aurelius, being patient was akin to donning armor against the trials of life. It was a conscious choice to transform potential irritants into lessons of endurance and calm. This wasn't about resignation or giving up, it was about channeling energy productively rather than wasting it on things beyond our control. Consider David's situation through the Stoic lens. When the server crashed for the third time that afternoon, instead of joining his colleagues in frustrated outbursts, David took a deep breath and used the downtime to review his code, mentor a junior developer, and even meditate for 5 minutes. He realized that his impatience wouldn't fix the server any faster, but his calm presence could help stabilize the team's morale. Think about your daily commute. Perhaps you're stuck in Los Angeles traffic on the 405 or waiting for a delayed subway train in New York. There's a kind of freedom in accepting that you can't move faster than the cars in front of you or make the train arrive sooner. This acceptance isn't defeat, it's wisdom. As Epictetus taught, don't demand that things happen as you wish, instead wish that they happen as they do happen, and you will do well. This shift in perspective transforms the experience entirely. Instead of gripping the steering wheel in frustration, you can listen to that podcast you've been meaning to catch up on, practice mindfulness, or simply enjoy a few moments of solitude in your busy day. The traffic hasn't changed, but your experience of it has been completely transformed. Marcus Aurelius understood this principle deeply. He wrote, You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this and you will find strength. When we're stuck in traffic, the external circumstance is beyond our control, but our internal response is entirely within our power. We can choose frustration or acceptance, anxiety or peace. Similarly, when dealing with challenging people, whether it's a difficult colleague, an unreasonable customer, or a family member having a bad day, patience becomes a superpower. Instead of reacting with irritation or anger, imagine responding with composed understanding. You give yourself a moment to consider where they're coming from, to recognize that their behavior is more about their own struggles than anything else. David discovered this firsthand when dealing with his increasingly frantic project manager. Instead of matching the manager's stress with his own anxiety, David maintained his calm demeanor, asked clarifying questions, and offered realistic timelines. His patience didn't just preserve his own peace of mind, it actually helped de-escalate the entire situation. The manager began to trust David's judgment and started consulting him before making panic-driven decisions. This doesn't mean accepting truly inappropriate behavior or failing to set boundaries. Patience, in the Stoic sense, is about responding to challenges with composure and thoughtfulness rather than reactive emotion. It's about choosing your battles wisely and responding to difficult situations with dignity and wisdom. Seneca offers us practical guidance on cultivating patience. Every new beginning comes from some other beginning's end. Sometimes, what feels like a frustrating delay is actually the end of one phase and the beginning of something better. The traffic jam might prevent you from rushing into a stressful meeting unprepared. The delayed project might allow time for a crucial insight that improves the final product. Patience, in the Stoic sense, is about embracing the moment rather than fighting against it. It's about seeing the delay, the annoyance, or the obstacle as part of the path, not a deviation from it. Every moment of potential impatience becomes a chance to practice wisdom, to deepen your understanding of Stoicism, and to cultivate a serene mind. But how can we cultivate this patience in our everyday lives, especially in high-pressure environments like David's startup? It begins with awareness, recognizing when impatience is starting to bubble up inside you. Notice the physical sensations, the tightening in your chest, the clenching of your jaw, the urge to tap your fingers or check your phone repeatedly. When you notice these signs, pause and take a deep breath. Remember Marcus Aurelius and the countless others who have faced far greater trials with patience and dignity. Ask yourself, will being impatient change this situation? What can I control right now and what must I accept? Another practical step is adjusting your expectations. Often, our impatience stems from things not going according to our plan. But as the Stoics remind us, we're not in control of everything, only our response to things. When we set more realistic expectations and accept that delays, obstacles, and setbacks are normal parts of life, we can find peace in the unfolding of events, however they happen. View each test of patience as an opportunity for growth, not a hurdle to overcome. Like a muscle that gets stronger with exercise, your capacity for patience grows every time you choose calm over frustration, acceptance over resistance. And the rewards are immense: a calmer mind, reduced stress, better relationships, and a reputation as someone who remains composed and thoughtful even in challenging situations. 5. Leading through example. Maria Gonzalez had been the administrator of Phoenix General Hospital's emergency department for 12 years. But nothing had prepared her for the crisis that began in March 2020. As the pandemic swept through Arizona, her hospital became ground zero for overwhelmed staff, equipment shortages, and life or death decisions made under impossible circumstances. The weight of responsibility was crushing, not just for patient care, but for maintaining the morale and resilience of her 200-person team. Every day brought new challenges. nurses working double shifts, doctors making heartbreaking triage decisions, support staff risking their health for modest wages. Maria watched colleagues break down in supply closets, heard the strain in voices during morning briefings, and felt the collective exhaustion that threatened to shatter her team's spirit. She could have easily joined the chorus of complaints, vented her frustrations, or retreated into administrative detachment. Instead, she made a different choice, one that would transform not only her leadership but the entire culture of her department. Maria decided to embody the principles she wanted to see in others. She arrived early and stayed late, not to micromanage, but to be present with her team during the most difficult moments. When a nurse broke down after losing a patient, Maria sat with her in silence, offering presence rather than platitudes. When supplies ran low, she worked alongside staff to find creative solutions rather than simply passing problems up the chain of command. This is the essence of what Epictetus taught about living philosophy rather than merely studying it. As someone who knew adversity intimately, having been born into slavery and suffered physical disability, Epictetus understood that true wisdom isn't found in books or lectures, but in daily actions and choices. He didn't just teach Stoicism in the classroom. He lived it every single day, and he encouraged his students to do the same, to embody their philosophy. In his discourses, Epictetus wrote, "Don't explain your philosophy, embody it." This powerful statement captures the heart of authentic leadership and personal influence. It's about making your life a testament to your values, letting your actions speak louder than your words. When we truly embody our principles, we create what the Stoics called a living example, a demonstration of how philosophy translates into practical wisdom. Consider the ripple effect Maria created through her embodied leadership. When she showed kindness during the most challenging situations, others took notice. Nurses began checking on each other more frequently. Doctors started acknowledging the contributions of support staff. The entire department began operating with greater compassion and mutual support. When Maria demonstrated integrity by refusing to compromise on patient safety despite administrative pressure, it set a standard that others aspired to meet. Marcus Aurelius understood this principle deeply. As emperor, he could have used his power to live in luxury while others suffered, but instead he chose to live simply and serve others. He wrote, "What we do now echoes in eternity. Every choice we make, every action we take, sends ripples through our communities and relationships." When we face adversity with resilience, maintaining a calm and composed demeanor, it can be a beacon of hope for others who are struggling. But how do we actually implement this principle? How do we become living examples of our values rather than just people who talk about them? It starts with honest self-reflection. Take a moment to consider the values that are truly important to you. What principles do you want to guide your life? For Maria, these included compassion, integrity, resilience, and service to others. Once you have clarity on your core values, the next step is aligning your actions with these principles. This requires making conscious choices every day that reflect who you are and what you stand for. It means asking yourself before important decisions, does this choice honor my values? What would the person I aspire to be do in this situation? Seneca offers us guidance on this practice. Every new beginning comes from some other beginning's end. Sometimes, becoming an example means ending old patterns of behavior that don't serve our highest values. Maria had to end her habit of complaining about hospital administration and instead focus on what she could control within her department. She had to stop making excuses for systemic problems and start creating solutions within her sphere of influence. The power of example extends beyond crisis situations. Consider a software developer in Austin who chooses to mentor junior colleagues instead of hoarding knowledge for competitive advantage. Or a teacher in Denver who maintains high standards while showing patience with struggling students. Or a small business owner in Portland who treats employees with dignity and respect even during financial difficulties. Each of these individuals creates ripples of positive influence through their embodied values. Of course, nobody's perfect. We all have moments of weakness, lapses in judgment, and times when we fall short of our ideals. But being an example isn't about perfection. It's about striving, about making a genuine effort to live according to your principles, especially when it's difficult. Epictetus reminds us, it's not what happens to you, but how you react to it that matters. When we do slip up, being an example means owning our mistakes, learning from them, and moving forward with even greater resolve. Maria experienced this firsthand when she lost her temper with a hospital administrator who was pushing for cost cuts that would compromise patient care. Instead of justifying her anger or pretending it didn't happen, she apologized to her team, acknowledged that she had fallen short of her own standards, and recommitted to finding more constructive ways to advocate for her department's needs. This vulnerability and accountability actually strengthened her leadership rather than weakening it. Another crucial aspect of being an example is consistency. It's not just about doing the right thing when it's easy or when people are watching. True character is revealed in private moments, in small decisions that no one else sees, in how we behave when we think no one is paying attention. This consistency builds trust and respect over time, creating the foundation for genuine influence. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "The best revenge is not to be like your enemy. When faced with negativity, pettiness, or unethical behavior from others, we have a choice. We can respond in kind, or we can maintain our standards and demonstrate a better way." This doesn't mean being passive or accepting inappropriate behavior. It means responding with dignity and principle rather than reactive emotion. The beauty of embodied philosophy is that it creates positive change without force or manipulation. When people see authentic virtue in action, they're naturally drawn to it. They begin to ask themselves, how does she stay so calm under pressure? Why does he always seem to find solutions instead of just complaining? What makes her so resilient in the face of adversity? Let's take inspiration from Epictetus, Marcus Aurelius, and modern examples like Maria, and strive to be living embodiments of our philosophy. Whether it's kindness, integrity, resilience, or any other virtue, let's bring these principles to life through our daily actions and choices. 6. Defending your inner sanctuary. Carlos Mendoza thought he had it made. At 28, he had built a successful digital marketing agency in Miami, working with influencers and small businesses to grow their online presence. His Instagram account showcased the entrepreneurial dream: luxury cars, beachfront office views, networking events with other young entrepreneurs. But behind the curated success story, Carlos was drowning in a sea of negativity that threatened to destroy everything he had worked for. It started with a few critical comments on his business posts. Then came the anonymous messages calling him a fake guru and questioning his credentials. When he shared his story of growing up in a working-class family and building his business from nothing, internet trolls accused him of lying and fabricating his background. The negativity snowballed across platforms, negative reviews on Google, harsh comments on LinkedIn, even personal attacks on his appearance and accent. The constant barrage of criticism began affecting every aspect of Carlos's life. He found himself checking his phone obsessively, reading every comment, and crafting lengthy responses to defend himself. He lost sleep, stopped exercising, and began questioning his own worth and abilities. His business started suffering as he became more focused on managing his online reputation than serving his clients. The haters weren't just attacking his business. They were stealing his peace, his confidence, and his joy. This scenario is all too familiar in our hyper-connected world. It seems everywhere we turn, social media platforms, news outlets, online forums, even our daily interactions, there's a barrage of negativity, criticism, and yes, the haters. The internet has given everyone a megaphone, and unfortunately, some people use that power to tear others down rather than build them up. But here's the crucial truth that Carlos discovered through his study of Stoic philosophy. They don't have to dictate your happiness or define your worth. Marcus Aurelius, who faced constant criticism as Emperor of Rome, often wrote about maintaining one's inner peace amidst external turmoil. In his meditations, he developed the concept of the inner citadel, a fortress within us that no external negativity can breach unless we allow it. He wrote, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." This concept is incredibly empowering when you truly understand it. Think about it. You have the power to create and maintain a space of peace and calm within yourself, no matter what storms rage outside. The haters can send their negative energy, but they cannot force you to receive it, internalize it, or let it disturb your inner sanctuary. But how do we practically build and maintain this inner citadel? The first step is recognizing what is and isn't within our control. Epictetus, the foundational Stoic philosopher, taught the fundamental principle: some things are within our power, while others are not. We cannot control what others say about us, the harsh comments they leave on our posts, the unkind rumors they spread, or the negative reviews they write. But we can absolutely control our response to these things. Carlos learned this lesson the hard way. He spent months trying to control the uncontrollable, attempting to change every critic's mind, responding to every negative comment, and exhausting himself in battles he could never win. It wasn't until he embraced the Stoic principle of focusing only on what he could control that he found peace. He could control the quality of his work, the value he provided to clients, and his own behavior and character. Everything else was outside his domain. We can choose not to engage with negativity, not to internalize others' opinions of us, and not to let external criticism disturb our inner peace. This doesn't mean ignoring legitimate feedback or constructive criticism. It means distinguishing between helpful input and destructive noise. As Seneca wisely noted, it is not the man who has too little, but the man who craves more who is poor. When we crave everyone's approval and fear any criticism, we become spiritually impoverished. Another key Stoic strategy is reflecting on the intention and source behind the negativity. Often, those who lash out at others are struggling with their own issues, insecurities, or pain. Marcus Aurelius observed, "Whenever you want to cheer yourself, consider the good qualities of your companions. For instance, the energy of one, the modesty of another, the generosity of a third, and so forth. But he also understood that some people are dealing with their own darkness and project it onto others. Understanding this doesn't excuse inappropriate behavior, but it can help us respond with compassion rather than defensiveness or anger. It allows us to see their negativity as their burden, not ours to carry. Carlos began to realize that many of his harshest critics were struggling entrepreneurs themselves, people who felt threatened by his success or were dealing with their own failures and frustrations. Practicing mindfulness becomes a powerful tool in maintaining our inner citadel. When faced with negativity, take a moment to pause and breathe deeply. Remind yourself that this moment of criticism is just that, a moment. It will pass like a cloud across the sky. You don't have to let it define your day, your mood, or your self-worth. By staying present and grounded in your own values and truth, you can keep your inner peace intact. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "Confine yourself to the present. The present moment is the only time over which we have dominion. When we're consumed by what others think or say about us, we're living in their reality rather than our own. We're giving them power over our present moment, the only moment we actually have." It's also helpful to actively surround yourself with positivity. Engage with uplifting content, connect with supportive people, and fill your environment with things that bring you joy and peace. Carlos began curating his social media feeds more carefully, unfollowing accounts that consistently shared negative content, and following accounts that inspired and educated him. He joined entrepreneur groups focused on mutual support rather than competition and criticism. Remember, you have the power to curate your own life experience. Choose positivity and let the negativity slide by like water off a duck's back. This isn't about living in denial or avoiding all challenges. It's about being selective about where you invest your emotional energy. Seneca provides us with another powerful perspective. Every new beginning comes from some other beginning's end. Sometimes, tuning out the haters means ending our addiction to external validation and beginning a healthier relationship with our own self-worth. Carlos had to end his habit of seeking approval from strangers on the internet and begin building confidence based on his actual achievements and character. It's important to understand that tuning out the haters is not about building walls or becoming indifferent to all feedback. It's about choosing where to focus your energy and attention. It's about preserving your inner peace and strength so you can face legitimate challenges with grace and resilience. It's about distinguishing between people who want to help you grow and people who simply want to tear you down. The inner citadel isn't built overnight. It's constructed through daily practice, conscious choices, and consistent application of Stoic principles. But once established, it becomes an unshakable foundation for navigating life's inevitable storms with dignity and peace. 7. The Stoic Heart, Love in Action. Amanda Foster had been a social worker in Boston's toughest neighborhoods for 7 years, but lately she found herself questioning everything. Working with families in crisis, children in foster care, and individuals struggling with addiction and homelessness had taken its toll. The system seemed broken, her caseload was overwhelming, and she witnessed heartbreak daily. Many of her colleagues had become cynical, building emotional walls to protect themselves from the constant exposure to human suffering. But Amanda had recently discovered Stoic philosophy, and one particular insight from Seneca challenged her to approach her work and life differently. She realized that love wasn't something she felt passively, it was something she could actively choose to express, even in the most difficult circumstances. This revelation would transform not only her career but her entire understanding of what it means to live a meaningful life. One particularly challenging Tuesday, Amanda was assigned to visit the Rodriguez family. The father had lost his job 6 months earlier, the mother was battling depression, and their 3 children were struggling in school. The apartment was chaotic, tensions were high, and previous social workers had labeled the family as difficult and resistant to help. Amanda could have approached this visit with professional detachment, focusing solely on compliance and paperwork. Instead, she chose love. This might seem like an unusual concept when discussing Stoicism. After all, isn't Stoicism supposed to be about rationality, emotional control, and logical thinking? While Stoicism does emphasize reason and self-discipline, there's actually a profound place for love within Stoic philosophy. But this isn't the sentimental, emotion-driven love we often see in popular culture. This is love as virtue, love as action, love as a conscious choice to seek the good of others. Seneca, in his letters to Lucilius, writes, "Every new beginning comes from some other beginning's end." He understood that love isn't just something you feel, it's something you do. It's an active, vibrant energy that you put out into the world, and it has this beautiful boomerang effect. The more love you give, the more you find it coming back to you, often from the most unexpected places. But what does it mean to be full of love in a Stoic sense? It's about approaching every interaction, every person, with goodwill and benevolence. It's seeing the humanity in everyone, even those who are challenging to deal with. When Amanda sat with the Rodriguez family, she didn't see problem cases or difficult clients. She saw parents who loved their children but were overwhelmed by circumstances, children who needed stability and support, and human beings deserving of dignity and compassion. Marcus Aurelius, despite the enormous pressures of ruling an empire, wrote extensively about universal love and our connection to all humanity. In his meditations, he reflects, "We were born to work together like feet, hands, and eyes, like the 2 rows of teeth, upper and lower." This perspective means wishing well for others, genuinely desiring their happiness and well-being, regardless of how they feel about you or how they treat you. This isn't always easy, especially when faced with negativity, hostility, or ingratitude. Amanda experienced this firsthand when working with Marcus, a teenager who had been in and out of foster homes for years. He was angry, distrustful, and often lashed out at anyone trying to help him. Previous social workers had written him off as beyond help, but Amanda chose to respond to his anger with consistent love and patience. Week after week, she showed up. When Marcus cursed at her, she remained calm and kind. When he missed appointments, she rescheduled without judgment. When he tested her commitment by pushing boundaries, she maintained clear expectations while continuing to show care. This wasn't naive optimism or enabling behavior, it was strategic love, the kind that recognizes that beneath anger and defensiveness often lies pain and fear. Being full of love also means practicing forgiveness and understanding. Everyone we meet is fighting their own battle, carrying their own burdens, dealing with their own struggles. Epictetus, who knew the pain of slavery and physical disability, taught, "It's not what happens to you, but how you react to it that matters." When we choose love and compassion as our default response, we lighten not only others' loads but our own as well. We connect on a deeper level, recognizing our shared humanity and common struggles. Moreover, Stoicism teaches us that love extends beyond just our relationships with people. It's about cultivating a loving relationship with life itself, embracing all its twists and turns with open arms. This means finding joy in simple moments, a sunrise over Boston Harbor, a child's laughter in the playground, the satisfaction of helping someone solve a problem. It's about appreciating the beauty around us and engaging with the world in a meaningful, positive way. Amanda discovered this expanded love when she started viewing her challenging work not as a burden but as a privilege. She was being entrusted with people's most vulnerable moments, given the opportunity to make a real difference in lives that others had given up on. This shift in perspective transformed her daily experience from exhausting obligation to meaningful service. So how can we cultivate this loving, stoic approach to life? Start small and build gradually. Offer a kind word to a stranger, perhaps the barista at your morning coffee shop who looks stressed, or the subway conductor dealing with impatient commuters. Show genuine appreciation to your loved ones, not just for big gestures, but for the small, daily ways they contribute to your life. Practice gratitude regularly, taking time each day to acknowledge the good things in your life, no matter how small. Seneca advises, every day and every hour ought to strip some folly from us. One of the greatest follies is withholding love when we could freely give it. Reflect on your daily actions and intentions, asking yourself if they're rooted in love and kindness. When you encounter negativity or unkindness, whether from a difficult colleague, a rude customer, or even a family member having a bad day, try to respond with understanding and compassion rather than matching their energy. This doesn't mean being a pushover or accepting inappropriate behavior. Love, in the Stoic sense, sometimes requires setting boundaries, having difficult conversations, or making tough decisions. When Amanda had to remove children from unsafe homes, she did so with love for the children's well-being, love for the parents who needed to address their issues, and love for the community that required protection. Marcus Aurelius reminds us, the best revenge is not to be like your enemy. When faced with hatred, cruelty, or indifference, we can choose to respond with love. This is perhaps the most radical and powerful choice we can make. It's not about being naive or ignoring harsh realities. It's about choosing to respond to those realities with love rather than fear, anger, or cynicism. Remember, being full of love isn't about perfection or constant happiness. It's about making a conscious choice to approach life with an open heart, to see the good in others even when it's hidden, and to contribute positively to the world around you. It's a courageous, powerful choice that can lead to true contentment, meaningful connections, and a life of genuine impact. 8. Your unique path to excellence. Kevin Martinez sat in his cramped studio apartment in Denver, staring at his laptop screen as he scrolled through Instagram for what felt like the 100th time that evening. As a freelance graphic designer trying to build his creative business, he had fallen into the modern trap that ensnares millions of ambitious people: the comparison game. His feed was filled with other designers showcasing their seemingly perfect lives: luxury offices, high-profile clients, exotic work retreats, and six-figure contracts that made his modest projects feel insignificant. There was Jessica from Portland, posting about her latest collaboration with Nike. Marcus from Austin, sharing photos from his design studio in a converted warehouse. Sarah from Brooklyn, celebrating her feature in a major design magazine. Each post felt like a reminder of what Kevin wasn't achieving, wasn't earning, wasn't becoming. The constant comparison was stealing his joy, crushing his confidence, and paralyzing his creativity. Kevin's story represents one of the most pervasive problems of our digital age. How often do we find ourselves scrolling through social media, looking at someone else's highlight reel, and feeling like we just don't measure up? We see carefully curated snapshots of others' lives and compare them to our behind-the-scenes reality, forgetting that we're comparing our struggles to their successes, our ordinary moments to their extraordinary ones. But here's where ancient Stoic wisdom offers us a powerful antidote to this modern affliction. The Stoics, with their profound understanding of human nature and the path to fulfillment, teach us that the only comparison worth making is with who we were yesterday, not with someone else today. This principle isn't just philosophically sound, it's practically liberating when you truly embrace it. Marcus Aurelius, who could have easily compared himself to other emperors, philosophers, or military leaders, chose a different path. In his Meditations, he wrote, "Confine yourself to the present. The present moment is the only time over which we have dominion." He understood that focusing on others' achievements pulls us away from our own growth and robs us of the present moment where real progress happens. This idea becomes profoundly liberating when you really think about it. Imagine freeing yourself from the endless cycle of looking over your shoulder, worrying about what everyone else is doing, and feeling inadequate based on external comparisons. The Stoics offer us a different perspective. Your journey is yours alone, rich with its own unique challenges, triumphs, lessons, and timeline. Epictetus, who rose from slavery to become one of history's most influential philosophers, knew something about unique paths. He taught, "Don't compare yourself to others. Compare yourself to who you were yesterday." His own life exemplified this principle. He didn't measure his success against freeborn philosophers or wealthy Romans, but against his own growth in wisdom, virtue, and inner freedom. Kevin's transformation began when he discovered this Stoic principle and decided to apply it practically. Instead of measuring his success against Jessica's Nike contract or Marcus's fancy studio, he started tracking his own progress. He created a simple journal where he recorded his daily improvements. A new design technique learned, a client relationship strengthened, a creative challenge overcome, or even a moment of self-doubt conquered. By embracing this approach, you honor your unique path and cultivate a sense of self-worth that isn't reliant on external validation or comparison. Your journey has its own timeline, its own lessons, its own victories that no one else can claim. When Kevin stopped comparing his 2-year-old business to designers who had been working for a decade, he could finally appreciate how far he had come from his starting point. But how do we put this into practice, especially in a world that constantly urges us to compare and compete? First, it's about becoming mindful of when we're making these comparisons. Notice that twinge of envy or self-doubt when you see someone else's success or happiness. Acknowledge it without judgment, and then gently remind yourself, "My path is different, and that's perfectly okay." Seneca provides guidance on this practice. Every new beginning comes from some other beginning's end. Sometimes, focusing on your own path means ending the habit of constant comparison and beginning a healthier relationship with your own progress. Kevin had to end his habit of mindless social media scrolling and begin intentionally celebrating his own achievements. Next, actively celebrate your own achievements, no matter how small they may seem to others. Did you tackle a difficult project at work? Did you show kindness to a stranger? Did you make time for self-care? Did you learn something new? These are all victories worth acknowledging. By celebrating your own progress, you reinforce the idea that your journey is valid and valuable. Kevin started a weekly practice of writing down 3 things he had accomplished, learned, or improved upon. Some weeks, the victories were big, landing a new client or completing a challenging design. Other weeks, they were smaller, organizing his workspace, reaching out to a potential mentor, or simply maintaining his motivation during a difficult period. All were equally valid markers of progress. Another powerful Stoic practice is reflecting on your personal growth over time. Take time to look back at where you were a year ago, 5 years ago, or even a decade ago. Recognize the strides you've made, the obstacles you've overcome, and the lessons you've learned. This reflection not only boosts your self-esteem, but also deepens your appreciation for your unique journey. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "The best revenge is not to be like your enemy." In the context of comparison, the enemy is the voice that tells you you're not good enough because you're not like someone else. The best response is to be authentically yourself, pursuing your own version of excellence rather than trying to replicate someone else's success. When Kevin looked back at his journey, he realized how much he had grown. 3 years ago, he was working a corporate job he hated, dreaming of creative freedom but too scared to take the leap. 2 years ago, he was struggling to find his first clients and questioning whether he had made a mistake. 1 year ago, he was still comparing himself to others but had started building a small but loyal client base. Today, he was running a sustainable business doing work he loved, even if it didn't look like anyone else's version of success. Remember, the Stoics didn't just talk about personal achievements in terms of career success or material gain. They valued wisdom, virtue, resilience, and inner peace above external markers of success. So when you measure your progress, consider these deeper, more meaningful indicators of growth. Are you more patient than you used to be? More compassionate? More resilient in the face of setbacks? More authentic in your relationships? These are the kinds of achievements that truly reflect your development as a human being. Epictetus reminds us, it's not what happens to you, but how you react to it that matters. Your unique path includes not just your successes, but how you handle failures, setbacks, and challenges. Kevin's path included losing clients, making design mistakes, and facing financial uncertainty. But each challenge taught him something valuable about resilience, creativity, and business that he couldn't have learned any other way. The beauty of focusing on your own path is that it transforms competition into inspiration. Instead of feeling threatened by others' success, you can appreciate it as proof of what's possible while remaining focused on your own growth. Kevin began following other designers not to compare himself but to learn from their techniques and approaches, applying what resonated with his own style and goals. 9. The heart of human connection. Lisa Chen had always been a high achiever. As a senior marketing director at a Fortune 500 company in Atlanta, she commanded respect in boardrooms, managed multi-million-dollar campaigns, and was on the fast track to becoming the youngest VP in her company's history. Her LinkedIn profile was impressive, her salary substantial, and her professional reputation stellar. But at 34, sitting alone in her corner office on a Friday evening while her team had long gone home to their families, Lisa realized she was succeeding at everything except what mattered most. Her phone buzzed with a text from her 8-year-old daughter, Emma. "Mommy, are you coming to my dance recital tomorrow?" Lisa's heart sank as she remembered. Another commitment she had made but might have to break for an emergency client meeting. Her marriage was strained from years of putting work first. Her relationship with her parents had become limited to hurried phone calls between meetings, and her closest friendships had withered from neglect. Lisa's story reflects a common tragedy in our achievement-oriented culture. In the whirlwind of our daily lives, it's so easy to get caught up in the minutiae. The endless to-do lists, the relentless pursuit of professional goals, the pressure to climb higher, earn more, and achieve greater success. But Stoicism, with its profound insights into the human condition, reminds us of what's genuinely important, the connections we share with the people we love. This might seem surprising coming from a philosophy often associated with emotional detachment and individual resilience. But Stoicism is deeply concerned with community and relationships. The Stoics understood that we are fundamentally social beings, and that our connections with others are essential to human flourishing and meaning. Marcus Aurelius, despite bearing the enormous responsibilities of ruling an empire, never lost sight of this truth. In his Meditations, he wrote, "We were born to work together like feet, hands, and eyes, like the two rows of teeth, upper and lower." He understood that our individual lives gain meaning through our relationships and contributions to the larger human community. The Stoics also understood that our time on this earth is fleeting, and every moment we have with our loved ones is precious and not to be taken for granted. Marcus Aurelius frequently reflected on life's impermanence, not to become morbid, but to appreciate the present moment and prioritize what truly matters. In one of his most moving passages, he writes, "Loss is nothing else but change, and change is nature's delight." But how do we put this wisdom into practice when life gets busy and we get distracted by career demands and daily responsibilities? The Stoics offer practical guidance that Lisa began implementing in her transformation. It starts with mindfulness, making a conscious effort to be present when we're with our loved ones. This sounds simple, but in our age of constant connectivity, it's actually quite challenging. How often do we sit at dinner with family while mentally reviewing work emails? How often do we half listen to our children's stories while scrolling through our phones? Seneca, in his letters to Lucilius, wrote, "It is not that we have a short time to live, but that we waste a lot of it." True presence means giving our full attention to the people in front of us. It means really listening when they speak, engaging with them fully, and showing them through our actions that they matter more than any external distraction. Lisa began practicing this by implementing device-free zones, specific times and places where she put away her phone and laptop to focus entirely on her family. During Emma's bedtime routine, at the dinner table, and during weekend family activities, she committed to being fully present. The difference was immediate and profound. Emma began sharing more about her day, her husband started opening up about his work challenges, and their family conversations became richer and more meaningful. Expressing gratitude is another key aspect of cherishing our loved ones. It's about letting the people in our lives know that we appreciate them, not just in grand gestures during special occasions, but in the everyday, small moments that truly define our relationships. A simple thank you, a note of appreciation, or a kind word can mean so much more than we often realize. Marcus Aurelius practiced this regularly, writing in his Meditations about the people who had influenced his life. "From my grandfather Verus, I learned good morals and the government of my temper. From the reputation and remembrance of my father, modesty and a manly character." He understood that acknowledging the value of others and expressing gratitude for their contributions enriches both our lives and theirs. Lisa started writing brief notes to important people in her life, not just her immediate family, but colleagues who had supported her, friends who had been there during difficult times, and mentors who had guided her career. These weren't formal thank you letters, but simple expressions of appreciation that strengthened her relationships and reminded her of the network of love and support that surrounded her. Then there's expressing love, which can be done in countless ways, tailored to the individual and the relationship. Love, in the Stoic sense, is active and engaged. It's about showing up for people, being there in the moments that matter, offering support during challenging times, and sharing in joys and successes. Epictetus taught, "Don't explain your philosophy, embody it." Love is not just a feeling to be experienced privately. It's a virtue to be practiced actively. This might mean making time for regular phone calls with aging parents, prioritizing date nights with your spouse, attending your children's important events, or simply being available when friends need support. Lisa realized that her love for her family had become more theoretical than practical. She loved them deeply, but she wasn't consistently showing that love through her choices and priorities. She began making concrete changes, scheduling family time in her calendar just as she would any important business meeting, saying no to non-essential work commitments that conflicted with family events, and creating new traditions that brought her family closer together. Making time for our loved ones is perhaps the most crucial aspect of cherishing them. In our busy lives, it's all too easy to let relationships slide, to assume that people will always be there, to postpone quality time until after the next deadline or promotion. But the Stoic reminder of life's impermanence urges us to prioritize our relationships now. Seneca wrote, "Every new beginning comes from some other beginning's end." Sometimes, cherishing our loved ones means ending the habit of taking them for granted and beginning a more intentional approach to our relationships. Lisa had to end her pattern of putting work first in every situation and begin prioritizing her family's needs alongside her professional ambitions. Cherishing our loved ones is about recognizing the irreplaceable role they play in our lives and honoring that with our time, attention, and affection. It's about building and nurturing those bonds, knowing that they are the true source of richness and meaning in our lives. As we reach the end of our exploration together, take a moment to reflect on the transformation that's possible when you embrace these 8 Stoic principles for solving problems with people. From Sarah in Manhattan learning to stop seeking external validation, to Michael in Chicago choosing integrity over career advancement, to Jennifer in Los Angeles mastering her emotional responses. Each story represents the profound change that happens when ancient wisdom meets modern challenges. These aren't just philosophical concepts to admire from a distance. They are practical tools that can revolutionize how you navigate relationships, handle conflicts, and find peace in our chaotic world. When you stop caring about others' opinions, you discover authentic freedom. When you choose honesty, you build unshakable integrity. When you refuse to take things personally, you protect your inner peace. When you practice patience, you transform obstacles into opportunities. Marcus Aurelius reminds us, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." This power, the power to choose your responses, to live according to your values, to love actively rather than react passively, is already within you. The Stoics didn't discover new human capabilities. They simply showed us how to access the wisdom and resilience we already possess. Remember that becoming an example to others creates ripples of positive change throughout your community. When you tune out the haters and maintain your inner citadel, you inspire others to do the same. When you choose love over fear, compassion over criticism, you contribute to a more connected and understanding world. When you focus on your own path rather than comparing yourself to others, you honor the unique journey that only you can walk. The journey of life is one we share with those we hold dear. Cherish every moment, embrace every opportunity to show love, and never underestimate the power of presence. These 8 principles work together to create a life of virtue, resilience, and deep connection, not just with others, but with your authentic self. Seneca wrote, "Every new beginning comes from some other beginning's end." Today marks the end of your old way of handling difficult people and challenging relationships. Today begins your journey as someone who responds with wisdom rather than reacts with emotion, who chooses love over fear, and who builds bridges instead of walls. The wisdom of the Stoics isn't just ancient text gathering dust on library shelves. It's a living, breathing guide for navigating the complexities of modern life. By embracing their teachings, you embrace a path of growth, resilience, and profound inner peace. If this journey towards Stoic wisdom resonates with you, I encourage you to subscribe to Stoic Vivu, where we explore practical philosophy for modern living every week. Like this video if these principles have inspired you to see relationships differently, and share it with someone who could benefit from this ancient wisdom. Together, we can build a community of people committed to virtue, understanding, and authentic connection. Your transformation starts now. Take these principles, apply them in your daily interactions, and watch how they change not just your relationships, but your entire experience of being alive. The Stoics are waiting to guide you. Are you ready to begin?